How's the hair?
Hair's still good.
Hair check.
Yep. How's mine?
You got a few. Okay, that's better.
Okay. Well, we're on the subject of transitions, right? We're talking about the transitions in life and how they affect us. You have one you'd like to tell us about?
Yes, and I've taken two major leaps of faith in my life, once in 2005 and another time in 2010. In 2005, I left Wall Street and my life in New York to travel around the world and learn about yoga, meditation, and the healing arts. And in 2010, I had been living in LA for 3 years and had built up my coaching practice, was teaching yoga and meditation at a few of the studios there in LA.
Okay.
And one day I was sitting in meditation and I received the message that it's time to go.
Really? Okay.
And I was very surprised by this. And the other message I got was, get rid of your things. So I didn't actually get the message where I was going.
Just go.
Right. And so it was a real act of trust for me to just start unloading my possessions, my furniture, and the things that I had. So I was preparing to leave.
Well, this is an act of faith, right? Because it's not like somebody picked up the phone and called you and told you this, right? This message came from somewhere else. Where do you think the message came from?
I believe the message came from my soul.
Okay.
Because when I was sitting in meditation, it was almost as if I could feel a part of my spirit somewhere else in space-time, almost throwing pebbles at me, saying like, get ready, we gotta go, we gotta make this change, and it has to happen now.
Okay.
So I ended up relinquishing all the things that I had and went on retreat to Santa Barbara. And all within a matter of a month, I heard about John of God.
Okay.
And I looked up John of God on YouTube, and the moment I saw him and the Casa on the internet, I knew that I had to go there.
Outstanding. And for people who don't know what it is, can you explain what that is?
Oh, John of God is a healer. He's a very powerful healer, and he channels spirit, people who are on their deathbed, going for spiritual healing. They go there. It's people who have been given their last chance to live, and oftentimes find that second chance. They're at the Casa. It's in Abadiânia in Brazil, which is in the middle of nowhere, essentially. And I didn't even really know very much about it, but I just knew I had to go. So I bought a one-way ticket to Brazil.
That is a leap of faith. Had you been to Brazil before?
I had been once before, but only for vacation.
Okay. All right, so now you're on a one-way ticket to Brazil. What happened?
And I received the most profound healing of my life.
Okay.
It's beyond anything that I could have possibly imagined. And I had never felt so supported in my own healing process. I was in LA facilitating healings for other people and teaching healing, but I didn't really have my own resource for healing, and knew that I needed to leave to fill myself back up and to nourish myself so that I would be able to give more to others. And what I discovered in this second leap of faith is that the moment I made the decision to go to John of God, all of these miracles started to happen. It was as if everything was lining up perfectly, and this was what I also experienced in my first leap of faith, is that everything lined up perfectly for me to leave. And down to a place to stay. I didn't even have a place to stay when I showed up in Abadiânia. There was actually a mishap, and there were no rooms for me to stay at the Posada, at the guest house that I had booked.
Okay.
But everything worked out perfectly. I rented a home, and I just found that every step along the way, I have the saying that when God guides, God provides.
Right. So trust.
When you receive that message, trust that you're receiving that message for a reason, and that when you act on what you're guided to do, that the moment you move towards that, it's almost as if the whole universe starts to conspire to help you create that.
Sure, sure. So let me ask you a question. You got these signals, right? You got the signs that you're supposed to do something different, and you listened, and you acted from the heart, and things work out just the right way, right? The alignment
Miracle
occurred.
beyond miracle, more than I could have ever planned or imagined.
So that's beautiful. Now, if you imagine that some people who are watching this are going to come in, and they're going to have a lot of different, what we'll call them impulses, right? And there's a difference between an impulse and a calling. So if you think about, if somebody was saying, I've been called to go to Italy, right? Or I've been called to go anywhere, right? What's the checking mechanism that you found inside yourself that says this is something I'm really supposed to do, as opposed to just an impulse to jump?
You feel it in your heart.
Ah, right.
You can actually feel the energy in your heart expand.
Right.
And you feel it in your whole body.
Right.
What I would say is that you really have to trust your energy, and you can tune in and even ask, is this from my ego or is this from my spirit?
Mm-hmm.
Because for ego, it looks really great on paper. It's going to sound great on Facebook.
Right.
It's going to win more recognition and acceptance from other people.
Right.
But when it's from your spirit, it's usually completely unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a surprise. It might even bring up a lot of fear for a reason. It might bring up fear for a reason, because oftentimes we're asked to let go of what we already have in order to move into the unknown.
Sure. And your head and your ego say, but I worked so hard for all that stuff, right? And I don't want to let it go.
Yeah.
So one of the commonalities I've heard between these transitions you've talked about is, you had a choice between following your head or following your heart, and you had a choice between following your ego and following your spirit. In both cases, you chose the more heartfelt path.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the right thing in both cases?
Yes, it absolutely was.
Outstanding.
And there was something that I started noticing when the second time I took the leap of faith that I became more conscious of is synchronicity.
Right.
Which is a meaningful coincidence. But I noticed that every time I was guided, it would be things would manifest very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'd meet the right person at the right time who had the right resource to move me to the next step, and it was really a step-by-step, living moment to moment, being highly present, that allowed this, I would say, path of manifestation, because synchronicity is a form of manifestation,
right,
to happen. So that when you do trust and when you do have faith, it actually does create an energy field, that it's not just an invisible thing,
mm-hmm.
that it actually creates a field of allowance for things to naturally come together, that things will naturally work themselves out.
Alignment can happen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, that love is like a guiding force. Love is a guiding force. So if you feel it in your heart, the intelligence of the heart knows how to create beyond what the mind can possibly create.
Right.
If you can imagine a submarine that has, what is that called?
The periscope.
Is that the periscope?
Yeah, periscope comes up
Okay,
and goes around, yeah.
so a submarine has a periscope.
Yeah.
And this is like our intuition.
Right.
Our intuition, that's the language of the soul,
Right.
and the language that comes from your own heart. And it can see far and wide in all directions, 360 across all time, all space.
Mm-hmm.
The ego mind is below the water. It can only see 20 to 30 feet what's ahead of itself.
Sure.
So
That's a great
it thinks you have to go A, then B, then C, then D. It tries to use the egoic mind to connect the dots to get you to the next steps.
Mm-hmm. So the egoic mind is a part of the thing that gets in the way of following your heart, right?
Yes.
And the egoic mind is associated with fear. So as people are trying to follow their heart, they know that they're on the wrong path, right? But they don't know how to get past the fear. I mean, do you have any thoughts on how to help people let go of the fear and move forward?
I would say that ego serves a purpose.
Right.
And to collaborate with your ego, if you think of your ego as a wounded child that is afraid, you wouldn't force that child, into doing something that it didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You would nurture that child, and a lot of times the ego wants to have control. It thinks that it's in charge.
Sure, sure.
And give the ego some things to be in charge of, Just say, here.
Keep it occupied, right?
Yeah, say, you can do this and you can do this, and
Right.
and notice when you do listen to your ego and when you do listen to spirit, because I notice that when you listen to spirit, things can manifest instantly.
Right.
And that synchronicity isn't just a cool, thing that happens. It's actually a sign, and it validates that you're on the right path, and that you can use synchronicity as a tool for your spiritual growth and to realize your own potential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, tell you what, this has been a really good discussion about that transition. If you were going to summarize this transition, right, and say this is what happened and this is what I learned and this is what I would share with anybody who's willing to listen, what would you say?
I would say surrender to who you really are. That it's all about who you are right now in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
and that your reality will reflect who you are authentically being.
So surrender and be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Surrender to who you are.
Thank you for sharing it. That was beautiful.
Cool.